helping you lead a healthier life. This is Kara's Cures.
Welcome to the Kara's Cure Show, where we explore the cutting edge of wellness for our mind, body, and spirit. You know, worldwide birth rates are declining, and many women struggle to get pregnant, sometimes after pursuing lifestyle and career goals first. I'm joined by fertility expert Rosanne Austin to find out really some of the causes behind this mysterious declining birth rate. And she also helps women leverage the transformative power of mindset to achieve their motherhood dreams. Welcome, Rosanne.
Thanks for having me, Kara. I'm so excited to be having this conversation with you on International Women's Day.
I know. Shout out to all the women at International Women's Day. And certainly we can't talk about with women without talking about fertility, the right to bear a child, the right to maybe choose not to have a child. But for the people that you are trying to help, I want to hear a little bit about your story because I think it's fascinating. Here you are, a woman who became a mom in your 40s, but you used to be a lawyer, and now you really have dedicated your life to becoming a fertility expert. Can you tell us a little bit about how you ended up on this journey?
Yes, yeah. So I was a sexual assault prosecutor in the state of California, and I had put off having a family until I found the right man and felt ready. And what was interesting is I had no idea what to expect in the world of fertility. I just figured, hey, when my husband and I decided that we wanted to have our family, it would be simple. But it wasn't so simple, Kara. We learned very quickly that according to medicine, because I was in my mid to late 30s, that I was quote unquote old. And I immediately fell into a panic because I had been so used to working for what I wanted. And I figured, okay, this was just going to be another project. I was going to get pregnant by May and we'd move on to the next thing. But it wasn't the case at all. I found myself very quickly going into a 7-year journey to conceive our son. And we tried every treatment, diet, lotion, potion that we could get our hands on, but nothing was working. And I was consistently being told it was my age, it was too late. And that really got me into a almost decade now long investigation into what are some of the things that women can do to improve their health, to improve their fertility, and ultimately improve their chances of getting and staying pregnant. And through that process, I learned about mindset, which is what I focus on in my work in the fertility world. And because none of the treatments were working, I'm like, what is the thing that I'm not seeing? And what I realized was I was going into my treatments, Kara, expecting to fail. And because I was getting so many messages about it being too late, I'm too old, and all of this stuff. So what I started to do was change what I thought about myself. Instead of taking on all the statistics, taking on all the scary diagnoses. I mean, they never found anything wrong with my husband and I. They couldn't put their finger on it. They just kept blaming it on age. But what I realized was it was a combination of stress caused by the way that I was thinking about myself, thinking about my fertility journey, and how I was interpreting what I was being told by, the medical industry about me and what was possible for me. And when I changed that, I was able to conceive our son naturally and have him when I was almost 44. So what happened through the introduction of mindset, Kara, is I was actually more fertile in my 40s than I was in my 30s.
I love it. The powerful connection between our thoughts and our bodies and what happens. And I know for some people who are struggling out there, and I've had both ways happen where I've had pregnancies that were really, really hard to get, and other ones I'm like, what? How did that happen? And I've lost, as people know from watching, in between my two children, I lost a baby at like 5 months. So I feel like I've experienced the gamut. And I couldn't tell you really why some were the way they were. I'm sure part of it did have to do with mindset. Some of it might have been physical. We have to acknowledge there are physical things as well. But talk about, how does mindset really make a difference? And how do you help people have their babies when nothing else was working?
Well, it's fascinating. The data that's coming out now, we know more about the impact of stress and fertility now than we did way back when I was going through the process. But the data shows consistently that in women who have high levels of cortisol pre-conception, not only does it take longer to get pregnant, but it can actually impact outcomes in IVF and IUI treatments. And it's fascinating. I mean, I experienced this myself because once I started to change my own mindset, I was able to do what they told me I couldn't do, and that was conceive naturally. So, indeed, there are certain diagnoses and certain physical conditions, but we also see this in cancer patients. People with chronic disease are able to not only manage, but improve outcomes through the use of mindfulness, changing their thoughts and beliefs. I mean, there's a fascinating body of data coming out about how much our body is literally listening to what we're saying, what we're taking in, and really how we move through our lives and our general attitude about that. So when it comes to improving outcomes, when you change the way you think, you necessarily can drop your level of stress. And what do we know? When your level of stress goes down, your level of cortisol goes down, and then we see conceptions go up.
It's easier said than done, right? I mean, if you've been told by the smartest minds that you have about a 1% chance of conceiving, and you have, you know, your FSH levels are showing infertility, or you're premenopausal, have you worked with women like that? And how do you, is mindset just an addition, or it really can change the physical in your experience with your coaching?
It can be both, because I've helped women from ages 28 to 52, Kara, get and stay pregnant. And it's interesting because loads of women come to me with horrifying statistics, less than 10%, some less than 1%. And yes, they're doing the intelligent things to do, like watching their diet, getting treatment as needed, and improving aspects of lifestyle. But mindset it's no longer in the realm of the woo-woo. It's actually quite practical because, as I teach my clients, thoughts, beliefs, actions, results. When your mindset is fully engaged, and instead of saying, oh, well, I have a less than 1% chance, it's never going to happen for me. When a woman can change her thought process and say, I have a chance, she's going to think and do things differently. So we're outside the realm of magical thinking. What we're really talking about is strategy. And when your thinking is clear, your choices can be clear, and you're able to see opportunities you wouldn't otherwise see. So I routinely, in my coaching practice, see women beat less than 1% odds and actually even go on to get pregnant naturally in their 40s. And we share our stories about that on my Fearlessly Fertile podcast. So they'll tell you themselves.
Yes, you have a Fearlessly Fertile podcast. You're about to go on a world tour called Fearlessly Fertile, which we can talk about. People are going to be able to come see you. But take me behind the scenes, so to speak. If someone were to coach for you, little free advice. Like, what's one thing you would do right now to the women listening and say, this is one thing I want you, I would coach you through to change today?
So one of the most important things is for women to reclaim their license and agency on this journey. And what I mean by that is when we are given statistics, those are simply probabilities. They are not set in stone. And one of the wisest things that women can do is say yes, and yes, I may have this diagnosis, and I'm going to be a mother. Because what I tell my clients all the time is on a planet of almost 8 billion people, you can almost be certain that there is a woman who went through something similar to what you've gone through and is holding a baby today. This is why mindset is so important, because there will be some people that will just give up. I mean, we see this in cancer patients where there are going to be some people that take their diagnosis and see it as a fait accompli, like it's over, and others will take it as a challenge and say, you know what? I'm not submitting to this. I choose to live. And their outcomes, I mean, are undeniable. We all know somebody who's been through a circumstance like that.
Yes.
And the same applies to fertility.
Yes, I'm thinking my former stepmother, she nearly died in a car wreck, and all the doctors said that she'd be a vegetable, or, you know, if she did live, she would never do much. And now she's written about, because apparently they said it was her will. They don't really know why, but, you know, she lives independently. She does have some long-term memory problems, but she came back, and she drives, and she does all these things that, so they have like little things about her in brain articles about, well, here's an exception. But, but you're saying it's not even like the rarest of exceptions. You're seeing it more and more. And so what does coaching for fertility look like? What do you do to coach to get better fertility?
Yeah, so what we're looking at is this is in addition to other amazing things that women might be doing. So what I'm really teaching women to do is think in a completely different way. Because most of us, as we were talking about just a moment ago, you'll hear a statistic, you'll hear a diagnosis, and see that as, wow, I have to wear this. This is my fate. But what we're teaching women is to think about this issue in a completely different way and see it as an opportunity and learn to, instead of think in fear-based, negative, doubtful, lack and scarcity oriented thoughts, think from a place of possibility. And it's interesting because the data shows consistently that people that are optimistic, and look, there's a difference between being optimistic and being in denial, which is why I said, and the number one thing that women can do is say yes, and yes, this is part of the truth, but it's not the whole truth. And I always tell my clients, look, the desire in your heart to be a mom is there because it was meant for you. And I come at that from seeing women consistently beat insane odds. And this is also why we are doing the Fearlessly Fertile live tour, because I am on a mission, Kara, to help 100,000 women have 100,000 babies, because our birth rate in the United States is abysmal and it is consistently going down. And if we want to keep America going and what we love about it, we need more American babies.
Okay, so let's talk about that. For those who are, most of our listeners and viewers would be in Connecticut, where would be the closest place you'd be coming? And when can they maybe see you? And what will happen on the Fearlessly Fertile tour?
So we will be in New York City on April 11th, and it's at the Intercontinental Barclay at 6:30, and women can go to my website and register to join us there. And I'm going to be doing readings from my books. I've got 3 books on this subject, a 4th book coming out at the end of April. And we're going to be doing some teaching, some coaching hot seats, and just bringing women out of the woodwork. There's so much shame around this topic, Kara, and I'm on a mission to end that. This is a serious problem that we have in the country. I mean, it used to be 1 in 8 couples struggling with fertility, and now it is 1 in 5. And this really needs attention being brought to it, just like you are today, so that women can feel empowered, women can take more license and agency over their fertility future. And it's funny because we see highly educated women are the ones that are in what is called right now a delayer boom, so that there are a segment of women that are actively having babies, but they're having babies later after they pursue their career. So we really want to show women that you actually can have it all.
So when we go on this tour, we're going to learn maybe something different than you're learning in the doctor's office. I have certainly done in-depth interviews with many of this state's best fertility doctors. We have a great place, the Center for Advanced Reproductive Services at UConn. They tout their rates that have increased. They can do so much more now. Yet there's still sometimes disappointment, and they still say age is the biggest thing. Do you agree with that? Or how do we get around the biological clock?
Yeah, so there are certain biological realities, but technology is changing all the time, and you can never quite account for the human spirit. We see this happening all of the time, and it's interesting because most of the statistics are focused on failure. They're not really looking at the anecdotal evidence of women who just get pregnant in their 40s and don't even report it to anybody, right? So we're really looking at engaging this aspect of women and their drive. I mean, there's nothing like a woman on fire for having a baby, Kara.
Yeah.
That she's just going to run through walls for making her dream come true. And we see more and more women truly stepping into a place of wanting it all. Amazing career, love, and a family. Because the family is not going out of style. Because if it was, these highly educated women that are leading the delayer boom wouldn't still be wanting to have babies. They're just having fewer because they're starting later.
So let's talk about some practical things. Let's talk about, I assume you might want to help people with their mindset. That's what you really do. So there might be some affirmations involved. When the doctor says you only have a 1%, yes, and that could be true, but also I have this possibility. Let's start with an affirmation. Is there a certain affirmation you would give people to maybe wake up to and start writing, or something they can do to begin to change the mindset?
Yes, there's one that women all over the world know me for, and it's this: I trust myself, I trust my body, I trust this baby. And when a woman gets into the place of trust and saying, okay, those statistics may say that, but those statistics did not include me. They don't know me, they don't know what's in my heart, but I trust myself, I trust my body, I trust this baby. You put yourself into a completely different realm of not only belief, but the type of decisions that you'll make. So mindset is inherently practical. It's logical and it's linear, because the way that you think is going to influence what you believe, and therefore the action that you'll take, and ultimately the results you get.
Right. Wayne Dyer has a famous saying of change the things you look at, and the things you look at change. So that's that, and anyone who watches the show knows I'm all on board for that. But we do sometimes have these negative thoughts, and sometimes they're not. They're just based in fear, and sometimes there's some reality behind it. What about any practical, physical things? Do you get into that in coaching women of something they should be doing physically every day, eating? Are there things you see that really help your clients?
Yes. And what's interesting about this is everything can be seen through a mindset perspective, because a lot of women get into the habit of, I've got to do 75 things, Kara. And if I'm not doing the 75 things, I'm not really committed to having this baby. But it's less about doing 75 things than it is about doing maybe 5 things that are actually suited to you.
Okay.
And taking your uniqueness into account. I have a morning practice that I teach women from my first book, Am I the Reason I'm Not Getting Pregnant? The Fearlessly Fertile Method for Clearing the Blocks Between You and Your Baby. And it's all about setting aside 20 minutes in the morning to do a series of very simple tasks to set your mind, to set your intention for the day, to make a decision ahead of time about how you're going to meet any challenge. Because ultimately, the stress that we create, because we are creating the stress, the circumstances that come into our lives, the meaning that we attach to that particular circumstance is having an impact on our stress level. If we hear that we have a 1% chance of conceiving and you are committed to being a mom, it's like, a fire alarm going off in your head. But if you are able to take control of the thought, we are not our thoughts, we get to choose what we believe. But when you take the thought and really question it, why do I believe this? Or is this thought even mine? Where did I get this belief that just because somebody says I have a 1% chance that I have to obey that? And it's fascinating. I remember reading a book very early in my career that said that people will often take a diagnosis and be very obedient to it. They say you have 6 months to live. Some people die right on time. And some people are still alive today because they were willing to question that narrative and make a decision in another direction.
Yes. In fact, I've interviewed the famous Bernie Siegel, who's from Connecticut, and I remember him saying, for those who know the work, people used to think he was all woo-woo back on the Phil Donahue show or the Oprah show. They go, that's crazy. But here he is now, one of the most respected doctors, but he said he would tell his cancer patients to go live like they were dying, just have the best day, do something they love. And they would notice they wouldn't have the pain when they were painting, or they wouldn't have the pain when they were doing something they loved. And they got so busy having a good time, he's like, they forgot to die. And many of them recovered, or had these, surprised their doctors. So you see that in your, I guess I want to give women hope here. We have really smart doctors, and it's not that we shouldn't listen to them. You're not saying don't use medicines, don't do anything. You're just saying that you don't have to say that as the end all be all, because there always are outliers and there always are exceptions to whatever you're being told.
Absolutely. And actually, Dr. Bernie Siegel wrote the foreword to my first book. So he's a huge mentor and influence in my own life. And yeah, 2 things can be true at the same time. Medicine is wonderful, but medicine can't do this without you. And that's what I tell women all the time is you are the X factor just like Dr. Bernie saw in his own practice. I mean, decades and decades of experience. I see this living proof in my own coaching practice. I mean, I'm living proof, and my son, who will be 7 in June, is living proof as well. Women, there's no reason to have hope at this point. You want belief. I believe that women can believe that this is possible for them. And it's way better than hope. They can believe.
So let's talk about the birth rates. They are very much declining, and I asked you in prep, do we have any idea why they're declining so much?
You know, since 1960, you know, the birth rate in 1960 was 3.44 births per woman. Now we are hovering at around 1.78. And the most recent information, there was a fantastic study in 2007 that was looking at this staggering decline. And they couldn't quite put their finger on it. It wasn't economic, it wasn't demographic, and there weren't significant policy changes here in the United States that would account for it. In my experience, from what I have personally lived and having helped thousands of women on their own fertility journey finally be successful, I think it's cultural. I think we have more plastics in, you know, that we're exposed to. I mean, there are myriad different things that come in to create a perfect storm of drop in our birth rate. But I think that women can rest assured that once they become aware of this and once they see this happening in their lives, they can turn it around. It's not hopeless. In fact, they can believe that we can turn this around, and it starts with them.
So now, knowing what you know, what would you tell the younger women who are trying to get pregnant or thinking about having a baby in the future?
Oh, this is such a good question, Kara. I love that you're asking it, because now, you know, where I look at where I am today, 50, with a almost 7-year-old son, what I would tell myself is that it's okay to want what you want. You know, I see women all the time saying, you know, it's wrong for me to want to start a family earlier, or society tells me I have to have 2 degrees before I can settle down. No, what you desire counts. And you get to have both. You get to have a wonderful career and a family. And you have everything inside of you to be able to figure that out. And you don't have to live by one specific standard. I mean, I think women in this country have been done a disservice because we've been shown this idea of masculine achievement, when feminine achievement for women is really where it's at. And that is truly taking a stand for the and. Have a family and a wonderful career and connection to your community. You can do all of these things. It may not look the way everyone else's may look, but all that matters is that you are chasing what you desire.
I love it. Take a stand for the and. You know, it's not that different for, I'm listening to you, and there's all kinds of experiences we've had where many of us who have done work with therapy have gone, well, someone, my mom, my dad, my grandma told me when I was young that I should never do sports because I can't run very fast, or you're never going to be good at this, so do this. We've all had that experience, and I feel like it's in our cultural vernacular now to challenge the thoughts we grew up with and say, I can do anything. You're sort of taking that same spin to fertility of somebody might have told you this, and there might even be some medical reason, but we need to look at this in a new way. There's a lot of possibility still.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's like, hey, you know, I don't come from the perspective that people have bad intentions. They just have their experience. But we have our experience as well. And as people who can make decisions, I mean, our ability to choose is the most wonderful faculty that we have. It's our superpower. And you can still love your family, your culture, all of these things. It's wonderful, and still think for yourself, because we all have a purpose. I don't believe that there are any extra human beings. I think we all have value. We all have a mission during our lifetime here. And I think it's smart for women to ask themselves, why do I want what I want? Not from a place of judgment, but truly from a place of interest and love for the vision that they have for their lives. So it's wonderful to listen to what doctors might be saying. They know what they know, but I like to encourage women, you know what you know, and you're going to make the difference.
For your books, you said you've got a few out now and another one coming. I want to give you a chance to just shout out, depending on where you are in your fearlessly fertile journey, which book might work for you. But tell us a little bit about the books you have out there for folks to help.
Yeah, so I always encourage women to check out my first book, Am I the Reason I'm Not Getting Pregnant? The Fearlessly Fertile Method for Clearing the Blocks Between You and Your Baby. And that was based on a question that I was constantly asking myself, like, am I the reason? And that so many women around the world resonate with, because when things are not working for us on this journey, we internalize it. We make it mean that we are bad people, or that we're broken, or there's no hope for us. But what that book is about is reconnecting women with their vision for their lives, reconnecting to their power and their ability to say, okay, I'm facing this fertility challenge right now, like 1 in 5 couples are. I'm going to think about this differently. I want to be resourceful. I want to be creative about how I approach this, instead of just being beholden to some diagnosis, because at the end of the day, everybody else gets to go home, Kara. So what this book is really about is empowering women with tools and strategies to change their thinking so they can create a different result. I mean, it's at the time of this recording, it's March. In the past 2 months, we've had 12 women in my coaching practice get pregnant, and many of those were given horrifying statistics at their possibilities. But this is the power of mindset. So I really encourage women to check that out and see if it resonates, because it's helped thousands of women around the world.
And shout out your website. I know some great reviews there. People have said that you were the fairy godmother they were waiting for. So sometimes we do need someone to believe in us and teach us those skills. So just shout out the website. Maybe you can pass this along to someone who needs it out there.
Oh yeah. So my website is www.frommaybe2baby.com, and people can find me on Instagram at Rosanne Austin Fertility. They'll get some tongue-in-cheek encouragement there, and also see loads of the ladies that I've helped finally get and stay pregnant.
Absolutely. Rosanne Austin, Fearlessly Fertile. You can check out your tour that's coming up. We have only about a minute left. I've always had this question. We know we hear about this, that people go through all these things, they give up, and they decide, I'm going to adopt, and then they get pregnant on their own. I feel like that's something about what you're talking about, like they unintentionally cleared the block, or?
It's 1,000% mindset. And that's exactly what they're learning through what I teach, is how to get to that place of surrender, to open up their heart instead of being constantly in fear, doubt, and negativity, because that's what causes the stress that messes with our fertility. I mean, our cells are listening to everything that we're thinking and saying. That the data shows that. I mean, there's loads of evidence coming out about that. So we're through mindset, we're creating that experience without having to give up on your dream.
Yes.
It's, again, yes and.
Yes and. Yes and. Take a stand for the and. Okay. Rosanne, thank you. I love that you're making it simple for us to understand. Good luck on your tour. Thank you for being here with me, and I hope that your hopeful information can help others. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kara.
Have a great day, everyone, and be well. You can always follow me at Kara Sundlin for more information on the cutting edge of wellness.